The zombies. The zombies. Oh, wow. I always have a habit of, like, being a complete goofball when I say zombies. I'm like, zombies. Time to take out all the zombies. I know, it's a little goofy. It's a little... it's cheesy. Definitely cheesy, but I can't get enough of me going like that. But anyway, let's get right on going to shooting some zombies.
Welcome, the Gamer Man's Lounge. Awaken to play.
To be quite honest with you here, I am kind of getting tired of the zombie shenanigans. I'd rather go for, like, enemies that are kind of more alive. Either that or kind of like something other than zombies. Or dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, that's something. Anyway, let's get right on going to zombies, since we're going to be talking about zombies. And of course, there is a game that involves zombies that does have a place in my heart. It's a game franchise that I known from childhood that involves a light gun, and of course, it is the House of the Dead. The House of the Dead is a big part in my history of gaming. Well, my history of the experience of gaming. And of course, the House of the Dead is a beloved franchise of mine. I can't get enough of House of the Dead, and man, I just would constantly, from left and right, play House of the Dead any given chance I get. When I get into the mood, I would be non-stop House of the Dead, House of the Dead, House of the Dead. But anyway, let's get right on going to the first game. Now, the first game was, I remember playing that on, I still have it on Saturn. Now, a lot of people have some issues with the Saturn port, or some people get it good. Oh man, get that air conditioning coming to me. Get that air conditioning coming to me anyway. So, people are like, when it came to the Saturn port, but people get it good when it comes to the PC version of House of the Dead. Okay? Hey, it is what it is. But anyway, let's get right on going and talking about the House of the Dead 1, because it got a remake. So yes, the House of the Dead 1 got a remake by the same guys who did the remake for Panzer Dragoon. And of course, it is kind of like a spot-for-spot remake of it with more additional stuff going for it this time around. So, yeah, we are talking about the House of the Dead remake, and when it comes to the House of the Dead remake, it is the House of the Dead 1, but however, it is made very ambitiously. I'll get right on that in a bit. But yes, I did manage to get a hold of the House of the Dead remake on the Switch, and I love to play with the light gun, especially with that Sinden light gun that I do want to get my hands on. Hopefully that game gets a PC version. But I know some of you guys in the audience are going to be like, no shit, this game's probably going to get a PC version anyway. Remember Panzer Dragoon Remake? It was timed exclusive on the Switch, then released on other consoles, Steam included. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Yeah, I was about to burp. I was about to have a burp here. Should have, and I kind of shut that down. I know I should have just let it out. Yeah, I know it's my shtick to have quality burps in the videos, but I know it is what it is. But anyway, what I do want to go ahead and talk about is pretty much the House of the Dead remake. It is basically the House of the Dead that you know, except with new stuff going down for it. However, the House of the Dead remake, I got it on the Switch, and boy oh boy, it was fantastic. Now, I will go ahead and talk about the music, because it does have a new soundtrack, a brand new reorchestrated soundtrack, and we'll talk about that. If we're going to be talking about the soundtrack, a lot of people are going to, me included, are rather prefer the original songs, the original music for House of the Dead, but however, it fits in, it has its own style, it has its own 1970s grindhouse rock style aesthetic that carried over from House of the Dead Overkill. It's like as if like the music composers was like listening in on the House of the Dead Overkill soundtrack, and then the next thing you know what, let's go ahead and just bring in some House of the Dead Overkill vibes into the remake soundtrack, and you kind of have the soundtrack that you get on the House of the Dead remake. And of course, I did play the game multiple times, and hearing it loop like multiple times, it ended up growing on me. It is a good soundtrack. It does fit in. It is a good soundtrack, but however, I prefer the original music just like many others. Hopefully the original classic soundtrack shows up as like additional content, but hey, it is what it is, and the music is good. It is pretty good. It does have it has its own little 1970s grindhouse soundtrack that, like I said, carries over from Overkill. It is what it is. But anyway, the detail they went into when they were remaking House of the Dead. Holy crap. Now, there are 2 modes. Okay, actually, I'm going to go ahead and scratch that. Now, you can play the game as it is, but there is a performance mode that does calm things down in favor for, like, improving frame rates. So, yeah. But, however, I did make a run through the game without the performance mode, and I did do a run of the game with the performance mode on. And there are differences that can be noticeable alongside the increase of frame rate. But, however, when it comes to, like, the design, the level design, the effects, the presentation, like, holy crap. They really went all out. It's like you're going in there, like, the Kyrian Mansion, it's just, they focused more on this dark, gritty atmosphere that they kind of want to have going for it. And it really does kind of fit in well with what we're kind of dealing with when it comes to the Kyrian Mansion case. So yeah, and I like how dark and atmospheric they've made things from left and right. It's pretty much insane. Now, there are going to be like some performance dips because they did went overboard, and there are going to be some areas where they should have calmed down. Like, there was that one area in Chapter 2, like the second chapter, where I was supposed to basically save this civilian, or I'm supposed to save that, I'm supposed to save that hostage, and from a zombie. Now, because of how the lighting is, and how bright the lighting is, it was kind of hard to figure out what was going down, and there were cases where I accidentally shot the civilian, and I was like, shit, I accidentally shot that scientist. And I was like, whoops. You do get an achievement when you run into that mistake. It is what it is. But let's get right on going. And of course, talk about the graphics. Yeah, there are some situations where they do need to calm down with the good old lighting. And they kind of made one area too bright and in the other area too dark to see things. And I understand you're trying to go for like this dark atmospheric stuff from left and right. It's like they were trying to go to town with it. And really, to be honest with you here, they did really went to town. Like, if this game were to get ported on PC and PlayStation and Xbox with ray tracing support added, we're probably going to see some more interesting results. Understandably so. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about the sound quality. Good. It's great sound quality. Actually, as a matter of fact, they kind of went on for like a unique kind of thing. If you go really, really spammy with the controls, like I would be, like say for example, I'd be mashing on the L2 and R2 buttons. Sorry, my PlayStation lingo keeps, or my Xbox, you know what, actually the trigger buttons, spamming down the 2 trigger buttons, it kind of has like a very like clicky vibe, but it's like a clicky of it's like a clicky sound of a light gun. So it does kind of like give you kind of more like this vibe of like, oh yeah, you're kind of like, it's just so clicky, like a light gun. It's like something interesting. I like that additional amounts of detail, kind of gives you that nostalgic feeling. And yeah, it is what it is. Now that we're talking about shooting controls, now the controls, there is gyro aiming too. However, what I did was basically involve like gyro aiming alongside moving the left analog stick and kind of work with stuff like that. And of course, there is single Joy-Con mode. I do see it in the options. Now, you can customize crosshairs for player 1 and player 2. Alright? And you have like dozens of colors to choose from. If you want to pick like the brightest and colors that do stand out, or more neon colors to kind of like make the aiming more easier for you, understandably so, if you want to make your crosshairs thick. But the crosshair designs is crosshair designs is good. Crosshair designs is pretty much good. I just want something a little bit more thicker, to the point to where I obviously want to see stuff, but I do understand why they want to get it as thick as they want it to get. They want more focus towards the graphics and more focus towards what you're shooting at. And I do understand, so I understand. But anyway, the gyro aiming alongside the left analog stick was pretty much as close enough as I can get to like how I do the controls for the game. Something like that. Yeah, how I do the controls for the game. The left analog stick in combination with the gyro aiming, it is as close enough to playing with a light gun as I can get, and that's something I appreciated. And it was me getting adjusted to it, and as soon as I get adjusted to it, it was like me like shooting around with the light gun. It was close enough to me shooting around with the light gun, okay? Don't get me wrong. Also, I'm going to go ahead and warn you up ahead. The gameplay footage I got, now there's going to be some rust in the areas in terms of how I end up playing the game. Now, this is me getting adjusted to like the gyro aiming plus left analog stick stuff. And then you also have the possibility of my Pro Controller lagging the crap out on me and spazzing the fuck out. I know some of you have that similar situation. And I was like, hey, don't start that crap. It is what it is. Yes, more air conditioning. Bring it to me. And another thing I want to note is that when I was playing the original, the classic House of the Dead, there would be some habits where I would have, plus there would be some areas that I would have a hard time on. And of course, playing the remake, the habits and rough areas that I would have difficulty with end up eventually carrying over to my experience playing the remake, so that's something to keep in mind about too. Now, there is stuff like auto reload options, and there are stuff like performance mode. Absolutely, we'll talk about that performance mode. Now, performance mode, like I said, it calms down the shenanigans in terms of basically like improving the frame rate of the game. So performance mode is going to be pretty much a lot what people are going to end up preferring. I don't know a lot or very little, but I had a blast playing without the performance mode on, and I've barely run into issues. Yeah, there's going to be some slowdown, but it's not too much. But if you want constant 60 frames, or as close enough to constant 60 frames as you want to get, you're going to hit the performance mode. But anyway, let's get right on going. Oh yes, the cutscenes. The cutscenes have been brought more to life. It's more in a Hellenistic tone, and what I mean by that is that there is way more movement compared to like the classic version's cutscenes. Alright, and there would be like some additional ambient tones that would get added to it from left or right. Okay, so talking about the game controls. The game controls pretty much great. The left stick and gyro aiming is basically, it is as close enough to me shooting around with a light gun as I could pretty much get it to get. And of course, I pretty much appreciate that. I appreciate that they would kind of like add in gyro aiming plus with left analog stick assistance from left to right, and that would be like a fantastic thing that they added. And I'm pretty much appreciated that they added in gyro aiming at all, because it just makes it as close enough to me shooting around with a light gun as it does get. And it does control fantastic. And I do want to go ahead and say that. Now, everything that you know about the House of the Dead Classic is carrying over here. You are playing something that is most of the time a spot-for-spot remake. It is a bit-by-bit remake. And yes, something that Panzer Dragoon Remake is also known to be. So it will feel like more of like a remaster with more HD graphics. Something like that. But however, what I do want to go ahead and say, it is kind of like, it is something similar to like Night Dive remasters. But however, there are remakes, because you do have the fresh coat of paint and all that stuff. And yeah, there is the spot-for-spot stuff. You see everything that you know in the Sega Saturn game you carry over. And it's just almost as familiar to the Sega Saturn and arcade versions, that classic versions that you have played on. Now, everything, the mansion, the environment, oh yeah, and especially the zombie, the enemies, the spiders, the boss fights, they are handled very well from left and right. And throughout, handled very well from left to right. There's even more details added to the civilians. And of course, like I said, the cutscenes and movements of characters are basically more lively than ever compared to the classic version. So it's like, and then there would be like this additional crazy stuff. Like say at the beginning of the game, in the classic version, you see how this guy was like lifting his hand up and then dies. However, in the remake, this guy happens to be like, holding on to like the wound in his neck and like pulling out a photo with all the scientists, his co-workers, like, there's others inside, save them. It's just amazing. And the new voice acting, the brand new voice acting, it is revised. Now, if House of the Dead 2 were to get a remake from the same guys, I'm expecting a more revised voice acting track, because here's the thing, the voice acting track for House of the Dead Remake is more revised than ever, and kind of less cheesy and more serious. I'm pretty sure, like, after House of the Dead 4, they have calmed down with the cheesy voice acting. So yeah, that has been such the case. I know some people are going to argue since House of the Dead 3, they have been calming down with the cheesy voice acting. But I know House of the Dead overkills voice acting and dialogue in House of the Dead overkill. My goodness. Anyway, let's get right on going to... let's get right on going back to the House of the Dead remake voice acting. So it is more revised. You do hear the same lines, but however, the voice acting is going to be more revised than ever. Now, when it comes to the credit roll, I wish they did maintain like the little first-person perspective, like walking back out of the mansion that the classic version had, but no. Instead, you do get, like, Logan saying his piece, things cut off, you type your stuff in, you have the credit roll, and then you have what ending you ever get after the credit roll. That shit is a bummer, a missed opportunity, but hey, it is what it is. And yeah, it does have a gallery mode, it does have a photo mode, it does have a horde mode where you do, like, shoot, like, more and more, there are more and more enemies to shoot at compared to like the original mode. That's something I do want to warn you up ahead about. So do spend your time in the original mode from left to right before you jump into the horde mode, because you got plenty to shoot at. Now, unless you have way more experience and have basically kicked a lot of ass in House of the Dead 4, or let's just say the newly released in arcade Scarlet Dawn, it'll be more of a breeze for you. Now, everything that I remembered when I was playing like the classic version is going to be almost 100% of the time here. Minus the whole credit sequence thing that I just mentioned. Now, everything, so yeah, it's just going to be just an extra little more detail to it. But like I said, it's going to be more of like a spot for spot or spot by spot, bit by bit, is what it is. Overall, the House of the Dead remake is fantastic. I do want to play it on a big screen TV, but sadly, the TV I had died last year. Yeah, the big old Vizio TV that was like 47-inch died last year around Thanksgiving time. Sucks. And I'm still kind of looking for a new TV, but I'm still looking for a better option for a TV. Or actually, no, that's not the term I'm looking for. A better time to get a TV. A more thought-through, more elaborated plan of getting a new TV. I have the one here that's going to do me until that day comes where I find the good opportunity. So yes, I have a TV to basically watch Blu-ray movies on from left and right. That TV is definitely not for gaming, because I tried to basically boot up games on that TV. The only thing it's good for is frickin'... Hey, at least I got the games monitor. And really, we'll talk about gaming on TVs in another video. But anyway, let's get right on going. Air conditioning. Ah, yes, keep me cool. Yes, stay cool. Stay hydrated. Okay? See? Stay hydrated. Stay cool. Anyway. But overall, the House of the Dead remake is fantastic. Now, I can't wait, because I know some of you guys are going to go ahead and say, it's going to come to other consoles anyway. Yeah, I know. I understand. I understand. We already went through it. But if it gets ported to, like, the PC via Steam, and then we have this thing going down called, like, the Sinden Light Gun, oh, this is going to be perfect. This is going to be perfect. Anyway, but I know for a fact that PC players, when they play the remake, they're not going to be needing to activate performance mode. We definitely know that for a fact. Anyway, let's get right on going. Let's get straight to the point. So like I said, the House of the Dead remake is fantastic, a fantastic experience, and something I would definitely recommend for Switch owners. Now, I'm going to be dinging around with the Switch control stuff and control jazz, but anyway, with that totally said, that is all I got to say about the House of the Dead remake. That is all, and I will be looking forward to you in the next video. So feel free to get a hold of the remake and start shooting up zombies from left and right. Oh hey, I said it right this time.
This is nothing but a video product made by a fellow gamer man. Ayo!